All right, guys, we had to do this again for YouTube, but the we made fun of the idea of this in my Star Citizen Live React last week. So the idea of concept art, essentially, of audio sounds of what 4.0 might sound like, and then on top of that, just it being called the journey to 4.0, when at CitizenCon they told us it's not even the journey to 4.0. They're just baiting us with things that are going to be in later patches of 4.1, 2, 3, 4, 10. It doesn't, we're in 3.17 now. So yeah, it's going to be this is going to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life. So I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to watching it with
At
you.
CitizenCon 2952, we introduced a new initiative called Journey to 4.0, showcasing stories about development specifically for 4.x branch of release. From new mission types like investigations to flight experience changes such as the master modes, from life in the verse-altering resource management systems to anything and everything Pyro related. The Journey to 4.0 is our chance to step outside the traditional weekly update cadence and look farther ahead than usual. And knowing Star Citizen, this journey will probably be one filled with plenty of twists and turns along the way. And the initiative itself will extend beyond this year's CitizenCon to become a semi-regular series of stories and showcases as you're about to see today. Now,
so it's the journey to 4.x. It's not even the journey to 4.0. This is going to continue throughout the year because they're literally out of content, right? So I've spoken how Jared has really, what else does he have to work with? It's a lot of nothing. So the idea of doing this makes sense. Like the things that it's going to take, the things that they're working on now that are in 4.0. It's just, for me, it's the calling it of the journey to 4.0. It's calling it, it's using it as a, kind of bait tactic for hype and things like that. Makes it feel like we're just consumers to them and they're just marketing to us. We're not members of their community. We're just people to continue to hype up so we can continue to fund the project, right? Like, that's what it feels. It doesn't feel like being part of a community when they do stuff like that. I've always hated that. We'll ever hate that. We'll always hate that. But the thing about doing this more consistently throughout the rest of the year, what else is he going to do? And also, this is implying that this is a long-term project. 4.0 is nowhere near close. We don't even have 318 yet, right? So it's, the letter from the chairman stated most of the work towards 4.0 and server meshing were done in 3.18. So it's a problem. So you're saying they shouldn't show it to us? No. So this is my problem with communicating. So I'm going to do my best to communicate this as best as possible. I have no issue with them showing us stuff like this. I think the main thing that I take issue with is the journey to 4.0 thing, right? It's the trying to tell you that these are all steps working towards the initial 4.0 release, which is server meshing and, a very, very major milestone in Star Citizen. When this is not, when some of the other things that we saw at CitizenCon are absolutely not, right? It's things that are going to be in the 4.x branch. That's it. So it's not even them showing the actual steps. It's not the journey to 4.0. It's just weird, So, yeah, it's just one of those things where it just doesn't make any sense. So that's what bothers me. But in the end, what else is he supposed to do? Because is there even a 319? Like, who knows, right? Like, what's the next patch? Everything with the massive delays that 318 brought is going to change the way everything that was initially planned in the letter from the chairman to next year. It's all going to get rejumbled, right? So who knows what's happening with all this stuff. So, yeah, I don't blame him. He has to do this. They just don't have to call it Journey to 4.0. And I went on a huge rant about just one little thing, but it's the microcosm of all the things that bother me about everything that they do. And it's just, I find it to be like gross and disgusting.
Most folks are familiar with the process of concept art, that act of creating expression to discover that which you want to add to your project, as well as determining that which you most definitely do not. It's perhaps the most exploratory and experimental part of any development process.
And the best way to make
extends
money.
beyond just the visual. Now, today's Journey to 4.0 presentation is from senior sound designer Matt Gabney, a discussion of the process of creating audio concepts for environmental reverb on the distant alien worlds of Pyro.
I can't wait to hear what 4.0
Hello everyone,
sounds like.
my name is Matt Gabney. I'm a senior audio designer at Cloud Imperium Games, and today I'm here to talk about reverberation, ambient sound design,
This is not my brother.
and a few concepts we're experimenting with for Pyro planets.
We are not related.
Without extensive soundproofing, most spaces will produce many closely spaced reflections, which reach the listener shortly after the initial dry sound. We hear this series of reflections as a single continuous sound, which we call reverb. Reverb is created when a sound occurs in space with pressurized atmosphere, sending sound waves out in all directions. These waves reflect our surfaces in space, decaying in amplitude until reflections eventually die off. It's my own hypothesis that the experience of sound is about 30% of the human experience and possibly up to 50% of the game experience. Different reverberations give us a rough idea of the space we have around us.
Sound is 50% of the game experience. Okay. Yeah, no. I'm going to go with no on that. But, yeah, maybe for Star Citizen. Yeah, I can understand a third or something. I think very much, like, for just the way I look at games, it's all about your action. It's all about the gameplay. It's all about the design of what player action, right? Visuals and sound make all of that better. But this is the sound guy, so of course he's going to say it's important.
During a phone call, for example, where we can't see the other person we're talking to, it's still easy to get a rough idea of the physical space they're in. The reverberation does that. Oh, hi, Mom. I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. We're filming. I'm gonna call you back. Thanks.
Hi, Mom.
So that's where I put it.
This guy's funny, actually.
Hey, Mom. No, I'm sorry. We're still filming. I can't talk now. I'll call you back, okay? Thank you. Bye. Checkmate. Here's one reverb for it, for example, and here's how the other would sound. In video game development or in audio production in general, getting the right feel for space is absolutely crucial for the immersion of the audience. As audio designers, our task is often to recreate an effect that closely matches the visuals. In reality, often the
Oh, look, it's Star Citizen.
best sound design work is what doesn't get in the way of interpreting the scenario. So our work is unnoticed until there's an issue with what you're hearing.
What's with the Office style documentary camera moving all over the place thing?
Basically, there's two schools of thought in layman's terms, analog and digital. Either there's a software generating reverb on a signal based on a complex algorithm, or you capture an area that you like the natural reverberation of and use the created impulse response, or IR for short,
He's a
to
very
generate
good
reverberation
clapper.
through it, which is
Yeah.
what we did at the basement of CIG.
That sounds cool. This is the one thing about sound stuff that I always find to be really, really cool is when they take like random things that you wouldn't expect to make the sounds of the things, you know what I mean? Like in the movies and games and stuff.
One big advantage we had with the CIG parking lot is the huge surface area on both levels, with a lot of parallel flat surfaces that can create delay.
Where are the devs? See, this is the Star Citizen parking lot. The Squadron 42 parking lot, completely full. This is the Star Citizen parking lot.
All kinds of distortions, and it's pretty much one driving element that I wanted to use for Pyro. How cool is that the new building we just moved into could be used this way for the new solar system?
Look at this. Where are they?
Of course, the IR we capture is also digital, which allows us to use them.
This is why we don't have 318 yet. This is the only guy working at the studio. He's just clapping.
In-game. So, where would it make sense to use IR in-game? My current task as one of the new senior sound designers in the team is to get some concepts together for the new Pyro solar system we showed some videos of during the latest CitizenCon.
Okay.
Based on the art direction I received, Pyro is a hostile environment. Any life developing on those planets is based on very different rules than what we have on Earth, and in Stanton as a consequence. And the basic idea is to make the planet sound otherworldly, unusual, a bit different, but still create something that pleases the ears of the players. It's a fairly contradictory pitch, so if you're me, after receiving such a task, you go home and cry under the shower for a bit. What I came up with is a list of complex systems that will allow us to generate several layers of reverberation that often doesn't exactly belong to the physical space you're in, and has a certain musical tone, plus some other granulated effects to give you sounds that could not possibly come from our solar system, making the familiar sound unfamiliar in subtle ways.
Is that a herald? Yes.
This involves a lot of experimentation, so anything I can show you now is purely so.
Guys, 50% of Star Citizen was right there. Only 50% more and we're good.
So we could have a clearer conversation about concepts.
Hell yeah. Whoa. That sounds alien. Yeah, that sounds pretty sick. Yeah, what's with the motion blur on everything? Ooh.
It's not confirmed, validated, or even discussed.
I mean, why would you have that much reverb on a like fairly open surface, not a lot of atmosphere, right? Would that really be a thing? It's not like there's any caverns or anything. Like I feel like we wouldn't have this much reverb. There was only a mountain to the right. Yeah.
At this stage, I'm just coming up with ideas on my own to have a content and possible systems to talk about later when Pyro audio goes into production.
So you can really hear it, you know?
And so why do we use IR instead of algorithmic reverb? The reason is simple. We're generating content on a planetary scale. The basic idea is to come up with a typology of sound parameters that would essentially allow us to procedurally generate audio. But with what we are designing, for a system this size, your absolute first priority is optimization while being able to control and test for all the parameters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, damn. Oh, that's music.
So the design has to be clever and the resources are controlled. IR takes substantially less processing power than algorithmic reverb. What I often did for the concepts of pyro is to layer several different sized IRs on top of each other. This gives you an odd feeling about the space around you and allows me to treat the layers differently with a few parameters and a few knobs.
This is believable in a cave. It all sounds like the cave sounding, yeah, that we have in the current game. But again, it's just something that this guy's like messing around with, right? It's probably dialed up pretty high so you can really hear it. How do I know how pyro sounds? This is it.
So that is a quick look into one aspect of sound design for Star Citizen. I hope you enjoyed.
I mean, until he started shooting the gun, it was like really, it was believable. It was cool. It worked for me. Like the real spooky one was pretty sick. Not gonna lie, I thought it was cool. But the one with the shooting the gun, it sounded more like it would work for a cave, and maybe that's what they were testing at that time, right? So I'm not really gonna look at any of this as anything concrete or anything that even matters. And I think that's all how we should look at this, because all this was filler content that they can slap on the Journey to 4.0 tag to, right? So they can be like, see, 4.0. So that's what I take this. It's not taking away from the audio concept work. It's not taking away from how cool some of those sounds actually were and the hard work of the developer there. But the as far as the placement of that content, the timing of the content, and how early it was shown to us, yeah, I'm not putting any weight on any of that at all. And yeah, it is what it is, I guess. It's just what they got to do, I guess, because they got nothing, you know, and that's where we are. So, yep. Audio concepts. All right.